So we're standing here in the gear room underneath the Michigan Avenue or the DeSable Bridge. So what behind me is the undersection of the very first Chicago-style bridge as we know it. It is a bascule trunnion design, double-decker, double-leaf. All of these things come together to form what becomes known as the Chicago-style bridge. This was the first of its kind. It's not the first bascule trunnion, but it is the first Chicago-style bascule trunnion. Essentially, Chicago bridge design alters throughout the 1800s up to basically this point when it begins construction in 1918. The earliest bridges in Chicago were simple swing pontoon boat bridges that were known for breaking apart, falling into the river, having to be dragged out. Early gallows bridges, such as the one at Dearborn Street, and then center pier swing bridges. This was a common design throughout the 1800s. It sits on a turntable and spins facing in line with the flow of the river to allow 2 lanes of traffic. But these early designs were fraught with construction issues, material problems. They were prone to breaking. They were very slow to move because they were hand cranked and thus prone to ships striking them, knocking them off their pedestal. New designs began popping up, such as the vertical lift, which there are a few that are still around, such as the one at Pington Park in Chinatown. And there were also the Scherzer rolling lift bridges, which operate basically like a giant rocking chair, rocking back on their pedestal, moving around. And because of that large amount of movement, they were prone to getting out of alignment. So the bascule trunnion design was considered the best and the most efficient, and that's what people were going for through the 1800s. The more time it took for a bridge to lift meant traffic was building up, money was being lost. So ships wanted quick bridges, people wanted quick bridges, and they wanted more bridges to allow for more traffic. Finally, this design was put forward in 1918, began construction, and it was finished just 2 years later. And the way it operates, the trunnion, which you can see right here, is the balance point. Bascule comes from the French word for balance, where it sits like a seesaw. However, it is offset slightly. So the weight of the bridge leaf has to be offset by a much larger counterweight. The bridge leaf we have here weighs roughly 3,000 tons. The counterweight we see right here is roughly 12,000 tons. And this 15,000 tons of steel and concrete is kept in place by a lock on the backside, what we call the heel lock. And it wedges itself into the back of the counterweight and prevents this bridge from tilting. However, when it comes time to lift, the barriers are closed, everyone vacates the bridge, that heel lock is pulled out, it's about a 4-second grinding noise, and then the motor kicks into gear. It is a 100 horsepower motor, mostly because the whole of the movement is based off of its balance. That motor is just there to help control it so it doesn't slam up or down. That motor kicks into gear, these gears begin to turn, and you will see the counterweight drops down into this 40-foot roughly pit, and the bridge itself raises up. This can happen in about 30 seconds. The bridge can raise, allow ships to pass under, and then raise back down or lower back down, and close back up. So when this bridge was finished in 1920, just 2 years after construction, they began work on the Bridgehouse Towers, which of course we're standing in the bottom of one. And the interesting thing with these Bridgehouse Towers is it actually takes 4 times as long to build them as it took to build the actual bridge. Only 2 years to build the Michigan Avenue Bridge, but the towers weren't finished until 1928. And this is because of the level of detail to the artwork and the carvings on the towers. See, in the wake of the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, the city made a concerted effort to set new architectural standards for the downtown area. Millions of people had come to Chicago for the World's Fair in 1893, and they were incredibly impressed with the World's Fair, the Great White City. They were not so impressed with the city of Chicago. And so the efforts were done, this is shortly post the reversal of the flow of the river in 1900, to revamp the infrastructure as well as the architecture. And these new styles, they wanted it to look very nice, the classic Beaux Art style, this sort of a classical revival. So much that these towers, all 4 of them, and only 2 were actually needed, they put in 4 for symmetry, and each feature great carved reliefs depicting eras of Chicago history. So when this bridge is opened in 1928, it was a huge deal. This was the first bridge that was ever put on Michigan Avenue, replacing the old Rush Street Bridge, formerly known as the Crush Street Bridge to many Chicagoans who got stuck on it during traffic jams. But to the idea of the city, this was to be the premier bridge in the downtown area. And because of its popularity as a double-decker, double-leaf bicycle training bridge, allowing for 2 levels of 4-lane traffic, all the other bridges in the downtown area were replaced with this style in their way.